in 2000, well, when did it start? Probably 2005 to 2007. I had to give 1 month, maybe half month off, half month deposits to get people in because everybody at that time was buying a home. But realize the last 3 years is not normal, right? As a landlord getting, I don't know, 20% rent growth in a 3-year period, not normal. It's far closer to inflation inflation 2-3%. So you have heard over the last several months that I believe rents are getting soft. In fact, on the daily financial news, we shared some public data and actually asked the audience to respond. And about 80% of landlords were indicating that rents were either flat or down. But now we're going to go even deeper behind the numbers and look at leads. What is going on with advertising, days on market? Because again, a lot of landlords are out there. It's like, hey, it's different. It just feels different. Things are slower. We're going to work with the CEO of Himlane, who has thousands and thousands of units, lots of data, compare this year with last year, and see if it's just you or perhaps it's the economy. What's going on, Dana?
Great. Thanks so much, Michael, for having me. So yes, we were a little bit puzzled, especially with the numbers that we've been seeing for September and early October. Just with days on market across the nation, nothing has changed. We still advertise to over 15 of the top listing websites. And so there wasn't much change, but we definitely saw days on market increase, as well as fewer tenant inquiries. And so I wanted to just share a couple of numbers with you. And that way, for the listeners here, they can kind of compare it to what they've seen, or if you have an upcoming renewal or slash vacancy, just to keep this in mind as you go through either the renewal process or putting it on market. So just historically, overall, there's a metric we track called percentage of our total units advertised. Okay. And so we track of all of the units we have, how many of them are on market. And what would you guess that number is trending over time?
Well, let's let the audience know just how massive Himlane is. The what would that be? The denominator is how big? I say thousands, but it's tens of thousands.
It's 28,000 is the denominator there.
The round number. So 28,000. How many are listed at any one time? I'll go 8%.
So it's lower than that. So what we saw last September, it was 5.3%.
Okay.
And actually, if you think of multifamily, they try to target a vacancy rate overall of a building around 5%. So that does make sense, right? Of that target. And then what you'll see is this September, it was at 5.2%. So went from 5.3% last September to 5.2%. So about the same number of properties on market year over year for seasonality and all of that.
Yeah, so like for like makes sense. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Now, what is really interesting is the number of tenants who inquire per property. And so that is the one that is really interesting, because if you look at last year, so 2023, there was an average of 21 inquiries in September, 20 inquiries in October. And then you see this every year. November and December are the worst. It was 16 and 17. So, it goes from 21 to 16 by the time you get to November, if you list your property in November. So if you think about that, that's a 23% drop in the number of tenants who are inquiring about your property. Here's what's really interesting, which we've never seen. That drop started earlier in September of this year. And so if you look at June, July, and August, we had exactly an average of 22, we'll say 22 point some number, 22 tenants inquiring per every listing that's advertised out there.
Okay.
And that was consistent for all 3 months. September saw a huge drop down to 18. And so essentially you went from 22 directly down to 18 in September, which we went back to historicals. We've never seen the drop in September so quickly that it would literally go down. And the reason we brought that up is it's a 17% drop.
Yeah.
But we saw the corresponding days on market as well increase because you're having fewer inquiries. And now this is nationwide. And so I'm just looking at total across the nation. But on average, market trends from that perspective and where we are year over year is about the same. And so I found that to be really interesting that there's fewer tenants out there looking at these properties. And I have two hypotheses on it. The first is owners are just thinking that their rental rates that they put on there can be higher because they saw in the inflationary years and remember 2 years ago, people were increasing rents by 7% and tenants weren't flinching, right?
Right.
Because they were looking at
Yeah.
what was on the market. So one of them is that. The other one is just there are fewer tenants looking. They're kind of locked into where they are or living at home with their parents, etc. And so fewer tenants are looking. So it's just something to keep in mind that if you have a property on market now, this September, and you're comparing it to some vacancy you had last year or the year before, you're not going to be set up for as much success as you would have had historically.
Yeah, I think there's so much in this that we could talk about. I think one thing I kind of take away from these numbers is this election cycle is causing everything to slow down, right? Churn, transactions, movement. It's just like too hard. Don't want to change. I'm going to chill out and wait to see what happens. So it'll be interesting to see if perhaps January or February kind of has an uptick again above normal. That if that happens, that will be the election, pause. We don't know if it's coming, but it's theoretical. The other thing I think you're right is some of this could be on the landlords. Landlords could have, and again, it's the mom and pop, right? It's the folks with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 who don't have purview or experience of decades. They may be looking to this still living last year where, hey, if I get a vacancy, clean it, rent it, 5-7% higher and no problem. It worked last time. No, I've been telling folks for the last 60 or 90 days, the rental market is simply different. In fact, what I would do as a landlord today, and I am doing this in my portfolio, if I get a notice that somebody's leaving that I want to keep, so not a problem. I actually have my team going back to them saying, hey, just curious, if we lowered your rent by X, would you be willing to stay? And so far it's worked 1 out of every 6 or 7 times that they've stayed. These are things that you need to do sometimes as a landlord to keep quality tenants, right?
Yeah.
If they're a problem, let them go. But it's just this kind of data is really powerful. And again, I want to tell mom and pop landlords, this year is different. And I suspect next year is different. It would shock me if rents are not flat or slightly down in 2025. The economy is different. People are tapped out.
Yeah.
They're going to start downsizing. They're going to start having roommates. It's just where we are in the cycle, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I couldn't agree more. And the data's showing that for us. And so it's good for listeners. I love that advice of like, if you have a really strong tenant, try to keep them in there because the vacancy will cost you a lot more. And we're definitely seeing that.
Yeah. The other thing, again, I haven't had to think about in years, and I'm still not doing this. I haven't done any of this yet, but it might be coming in 2025 is AKA the famous move-in special. You're seeing this in some new construction apartments, right? 1-2 months off. Folks, in when did it start? Probably 2005 to 2007. I had to give 1 month, maybe half month off, half month deposits to get people in because everybody at that time was buying a home. But realize the last 3 years is not normal, right? As a landlord getting, 20% rent growth in a 3-year period, not normal. It's far closer to inflation 2-3%. So I think landlords need to realize that the last 2 or 3 years were abnormal, not the normal. Does that make sense?
Normal. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And of course, most rental owners out there will just think of the past 2 years and so benchmark off of that. So it's a good reminder to everyone.
Yeah, I'm curious because I know you have a lot of data scientists out there. I'm curious with all the data you have, do you think we could host a school session just for my school members where they could ask about their city or their state, just what's going on behind the scenes? Because again, we're talking macro US, but if we did a school scenario, somebody could say, hey, what's going on in Pittsburgh or what's going on in Alabama? Is the data sliced in a way where you could say, hey, give me a few seconds. Let me look at that. Is that possible?
Yeah, if we know what the data is in advance that they want, we do have it. And so if
Yeah,
we know this
I
is the
would think
data, now let's do
city.
it by city. Yeah,
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 city
yeah,
and
yeah.
state minimum, right? Assuming there's enough data sets. But yeah, if we could go to city, or maybe I don't know if you, I don't know if you're tracking county. I'm just trying to think of the way to state, county, city. But I think there
Yeah,
might be some value in there because again, the school platform is rather controlled. 300 people there. There'll probably be 10 to 20 people that join. They may have
yeah,
info, and they could ask all kinds of questions, right? Medium rent, days on market. There's
totally.
so much data there. Would that be something you and or someone in your team be interested in
Yeah,
doing in the next couple of weeks?
yeah, yeah, we would love that. And just in advance, knowing what those are so we can get them by city would be fantastic because the data is all there and structured in the back end. On the front end, we just need to make that more visible.
Yeah, exactly. And again, folks, this would be something very private, very much for the school community. Do me a favor. If you are a school member or will be a school member in the next week or so, leave the city and state that you're in that you would have questions below in the comments. Dana goes through those, and we will get something scheduled in the next 2 or 3 weeks where you can get a sneak peek about what is going on in the rental market across the country. What do you think?
I love it. I'm excited about it.
And again, folks, don't forget Himlane offers all kinds of stuff for free. You could advertise your listing for free. You can get a free version of Himlane. You can get I was going to call it a trial. Yeah, trial. I almost said proof of concept. Oh my God, old vocabulary. A trial and so much more from Himlane. They just go to himlane.com and they mention ORaaT for a discount, right?
Yep, that's correct. Mention ORaaT, you'll get the highest discount that we have, which is 20% off that first year. And just try it out, even if right
Yeah.
now you don't have a vacancy, you can try it with your current tenants, etc. I'm excited about that. And then you'll be in good company when we go through the different cities and counties and check what's going on.
And I think I heard a little birdie tell me the other day that while you have roughly 20,000 plus units on it, you had this free version. Isn't it some silly number like 100,000 or some crazy number like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people using the free version as well to find and place a tenant. And so that doesn't cost you anything. That will do all the advertising and all of that for listeners out there.
Yeah, folks, if you're not using the free service, you're just silly. You're just being lazy. It's crazy. And also the other thing I think not enough people realize, and I hope all my fans know, is you actually have a resource tab on Hemlane that really does a great job of tracking local changes to laws and other things. We don't hype that up enough. The team that does that at Hemlane is amazing. Is it just hemlane.com/resources?
Yep, hemley.com/resources. If you go to hemley.com, you can see it in the upper right hand corner. But you're right, for your state, for your county, you should be educated on everything from what is the allowable late fees to are there any restrictions on pet rent? So go through those. We'd love for you to be educated on them. If you go through our in app experience, we also link to those. So every step of the way, you make sure the allowable security deposit is the right amount, et cetera. Here in California, those laws just recently changed. And so you just want to stay up to date with it always.
Folks, again, remember, we're going to get Dana and the team at Hemlane to give us some look behind the scenes. So what city and state do you want to know about your rental property? Because again, I talk averages on the daily financial news or medians. I don't talk your city, your state, but we can get the data. They've got it. Dana, you're amazing. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Mhm.